ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ. Namaste, all of you. Welcome back to our study of the series of lectures and teachings that Swami Paramarthananda delivered under the umbrella topic of Introduction to Vedanta, which Swamiji said he has based his teachings through this series of lectures on the primer text called Tattvabodha, which we have seen earlier, Swamiji mentioning. We have covered two topics in this series. We began with the topic of Purusharthas, meaning human goals, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Then Swamiji gave us a bird's eye view of our vast scriptural literature, especially literature written in the Sanskrit language, in which Swamiji layered the entire vast scriptural literature into 6 layers. And we saw that the 6 layers were the Shruti, our fundamental scriptures, the Vedas. Then Swamiji talked about the Sutra literature, aphoristic literature, literature in the form of aphorisms. Then he spoke about Smritis, remembered literature written by our great Maharishis, of course, based on the Vedas. The Sutra literature is also based on our fundamental texts, the Vedas. Then Swamiji talked about the great Puranic literature, the literature of the Puranas. We observed that each of these layers has been a slight magnification of the layer that went before it. So, pithy statements in the Sutra literature were slightly expanded upon by the Smriti literature and later on by the Purana literature. Then Swamiji talked to us about the itihasas. Itihasa. And in the itihasas, we have two great itihasas, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. And then finally, the 6th layer was the Bhashyam literature, in which Vyasa Maharishi gives us the key to reverentially unlock our scriptural teachings. So these 6 layers were talked about briefly. Swamiji, as Swamiji said, he gave us a bird's eye view of our vast scriptural literature. Now we move on to the third topic in this series, namely the Varna Ashrama Vyavastha, a classification of society as envisaged by our scriptural literature. In this, we will first be exploring the topic of Varna Vyavastha, and later on, Swamiji will talk to us about the Ashrama Vyavastha. Let us now step into the Varna Vyavastha topic and see what Swamiji has to say to us. Swamiji says the Varna Ashrama Vyavastha or scheme laid out by our scriptures is very difficult to translate into English. He says in the earlier two topics that we studied, we saw, as we saw earlier, we, we heard Swamiji, or we explored Swamiji talking about the four human goals, the Purusharthas, and our Shastras. The primary aim of the scriptures is to help the human being in accomplishing the fourfold human goals. The scriptures are willing to help those who are willing to take its assistance. Very important. There is no enforcement involved. This is similar to a "may I help you" counter one finds in a railway station. If one does not know on which platform a train is expected to arrive, or whether the train will arrive at all, one reaches out to such counters for help, isn't it? Our scriptures too, Swamiji says, have a "may I help you" counter. They serve as "may I help you" counters. Whoever has faith or shraddha in the scriptures and is humble enough to take their assistance, they prove invaluable for humanity in accomplishing the Purusharthas, the fourfold goals, which we had earlier classified into two, that is, Preyas and Shreyas. Under the Purusharthas topic, we had looked at this classification. So Swamiji had said that Preyas includes the Purusharthas of Dharma, Artha, and Kama. Whereas Shreyas addresses the fourth and final Purushartha, the Parama Purushartha, namely Moksha. For accomplishing these goals, our scriptures provide a particular infrastructure. The word infrastructure is very widely used, and we know its importance very well. For a country's progress, it requires the necessary conditions and atmosphere, the infrastructure. Without proper roads and communication systems, progress cannot be facilitated. We all know that. One observes that there is a clear understanding of the necessity of proper infrastructure required, and this understanding is very clear in the Vedas or the scriptures, which has been presented as the Varna Ashrama Vyavastha or scheme an ideal scheme provided for by our scriptures to progress humanity through these four purusharthas and finally gain jnanam and moksha. It is a scheme by which human beings can accomplish all the purusharthas. It is worth noting that the Veda keeps in mind both the spiritual and material goals of life. Unlike Western society, which specializes in providing the infrastructure predominantly for material success. In our language, Western society is Arthakama Pradhana, predominantly Arthakama Pradhana. That is, Artha meaning security, and Kama means all forms of entertainment, enjoyment, etc. So, Western society is a society more focused on providing security and entertainment. It's a security and entertainment focused society. And infrastructure, Swamiji says, which caters only to the material success or goals, is not suited for the accomplishment of spiritual goals, isn't it? Because we are talking about four purusharthas, and if we and we find that only two purusharthas are being addressed, that is the artha and kama, then naturally dharma and moksha get left out, isn't it? So the infrastructure envisioned by our scriptures is all inclusive, keeping in mind both the material and spiritual success of mankind. A holistic approach, an all inclusive approach. Mere material success is absolutely worthless, which Arjuna starkly discovered on the Kurukshetra battlefield. Arjuna was a rich and accomplished person. His other name was Dhananjaya. He was a rich and accomplished person materially, but his spiritual bankruptcy came to the fore when he was faced with a crisis, like on the battlefield. Our scriptures do admit the importance of material success, but they do caution by saying that it must be balanced and complemented by spiritual growth and success. What matters ultimately is spiritual success, as is evidenced by the famous statement in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. It says, Yova etadaksharam gargi aviditva asman lokat praiti sa kripanaha. So, this Upanishadic statement says, he, the human being, this Aksharam means the Supreme Brahman, Aviditva, he who doesn't come to know of this Brahman, Asman Lokat Praiti, before he leaves his mortal coils is a kripanaha. Kripanaha means he is he's uh, he's not made his life. He's still he's still wanting. He's still uh, uh, requiring help and requiring assistance. Kripanaha. He's sorrowful. Karpanya bhava. Whereas, on the other hand, atha यह एतदक्षरं गार्गी विदित्वा अस्मान् लोकात् प्रैति सः ब्राह्मणः. A truly successful person, according to our scriptures, is one who has discovered his real spiritual nature. This infrastructure or social design or social scheme that our scriptures provide for is called Varna Ashrama Vyavastha. We will explore more in the upcoming capsule. Hari Om.